Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Classics with Courtney, and today is going to be a double feature, this time on Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much. Released in 1934 and 1956, both films are about a family who go on vacation and is caught up in an assassination plot. When they both find some vital information, their child is kidnapped in order to keep their mouth shut. I think I wanted to go ahead and tackle this a little bit differently. Instead of comparing them both simultaneously, we're going to do it by half. So the first half of the video, I will focus on the 34 version alone, and then talk about the remake. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the original. The original story clocks in at only an hour and 15 minutes, and to me, it is a really good movie. It's simple, but it's really fun. I love the characters. I love the acting for the most part. My favorite is Nova Pilbeam, who would ultimately play in another Hitchcock movie called Young and Innocent, one of my other favorite Hitchcock films. And I love the way the mother here is portrayed by Edna Best, I think her name is. And she's very tough. She knows how to handle a gun. Something that I don't think we've seen too many Hitchcock female characters do too much. Don't tell me there's no strong female characters in classic films, because Hitchcock had plenty of them. She especially does something very different as far as Hitchcock female characters. In fact, I think she's the only one that has done it, which is she actually shoots a bad guy. Don't think we've ever seen that, but I really like how that is played off. And like I said, Nova Pilbeam is really adorable as their daughter, Betty. And I don't know, she's just so likable. I like her a lot. I find it funny that some people do compare her and Hank and how they don't like the children in these films. I don't get it. Like, I get children back at that time didn't really act that well compared to now, but to me, I don't know. I didn't have a problem with either one of them, but Nova definitely I didn't have a problem with at all. Then you have Peter Lorre as the bad guy. He is so fun, so sleazy, and yet he's just so funny. You know, like he's holding this man and his daughter hostage, and yet he's offering to feed the husband, and he gives him a cigarette for a smoke, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just kind of fun. He also shows a bit of vulnerability, like when they take Betty away from her father after they reunite. The camera pans to him, and he almost looks sad. And that's honestly very interesting for a villain for Hitchcock. So I think Peter Lorre did a really good job here. I think the only thing I really want to touch on as far as the original is somebody pointed out that as strong as this woman is, as level-headed as she was, she faints when she finds out her daughter has been kidnapped. On one hand, I do get it. If you're showing her this strong woman on one hand, and why would you have her faint? So I get it from that point of view. But it's also the 1930s, and I guess it was just something that they had women do at that time. But it's also I think a necessary reaction as well, because it just shows that she loves her daughter so much, and that she's scared for her, and you know, she's upset that she's been taken away from her. Either way, Edna does an amazing job here, and she's definitely a highlight of the film. Now in the remake, you got at least better actors, for sure. You have Doris Day and Jimmy Stewart, who are two of my favorites, and the movie does clock in at 2 hours, so there's a lot that they added, which on one hand I think it's unnecessary. I think there's a lot of padding that could have been taken out, and a lot of unnecessary scenes. But at the same time, I wasn't bored, so I guess either way, it's no loss. One thing I will say as far as the remake, I watched it in its entirety on Friday, and I really enjoyed it more than what I thought I would. However, that wasn't the case at first. I think it was around 8 years ago when I tried when I tried watching it for the first time. And it actually angered me to the point where I actually fast forwarded like the last 40 minutes just to get to the ending because I want to see how it ended. I know. But here's the thing. At the time, I was still pretty green when it came to watching old Hollywood movies, and there was a lot that I didn't know at the time. And this particular film actually angered me because of how they handled the kidnapping plot. In the original, they're at a hotel, and when the assassination of the agent happens, the child's father says, "Go to your room." Well, she's in a hotel. There's people in the hotel that work there, so you figure she's safe. In the remake, though, Joe and Ben, funny, Jill, Bob, Joe, Ben, that's kind of a little neat Easter egg, I guess. But anyway, in the remake, they meet the Draytons, and they literally just have dinner with them for one night, and then they go to the market the next day. They have known each other less than a day. And when the assassination of the agent takes place, the cop comes up and says, "Do you need to go to the police station?" And the Mrs. Drayton asks, "Well, you don't want Hank to go with you, do you?" And Hank actually protests. He's like, "No, I want to go to the police station." Smart boy, Hank, you should have went. But Joe is like, "No, take him back to the hotel, please. You've known these people less than a day, and you hand over your child over to somebody you barely know. Don't hand over your loved one, especially a child, to somebody you barely know." I know it was 1956, but they were still in a different country. They weren't in their own hometown, and you don't know who you're gonna meet. I mean, even in the, like, if you look from the beginning, Joe is constantly looking around. "Oh, this person looks odd," or "This person is staring at us." So why on earth would you have her examine everybody, even the Draytons? Like, she's like, "The Draytons are even staring at us," and yet you still hand over your child to them? To me, I hated that change. I hated how that was done, and that's what made me hate the movie for the longest time. In fact, I believe it's on my list of top Hitchcock movies I don't like on an old video. Boy, has that not aged very well. But in the grand scheme of things, looking at it now and seeing way worse movies, including a couple of Hitchcock's, it's not the worst. It's definitely not the worst of Hitchcock's movies. They're both really good movies. They are just not my favorites. But if I had to choose which one I could watch over and over again, it would be the original. The original to me is just more simple, more straight to the point. The woman is done way better, in my opinion. The kidnapping is done better. And I love the fact that the child and the dad are reunited fairly early, and then it becomes okay, we both need to get out of here. Whereas in the remake, it drags out longer to where we don't see Hank until the very end. But there are things that the remake does do better than the original. For example, when Joe finds out that her son has been kidnapped, her reaction is way better. Instead of just collapsing, she actually tries to run. Unfortunately, her husband gave her sedatives, and he actually forces her onto the bed before she passes out. I think that scene was handled extremely well, and Doris Day knocks it out of the park. Again, the casting is better. I mean, you can't go wrong with Jimmy Stewart or Doris Day in my book. The score by Bernard Herrmann is really good, although I detected some Vertigo music here and there. Which came out 2 years after this one, which I did not mention in my Vertigo review, but I kind of want to point it out here. Part of the trivia for Vertigo was that when the film didn't do well, Hitchcock blamed Jimmy for his age, and he never worked with Hitchcock again. I don't think it's fair that you put the blame on Jimmy. I mean, yes, was he a tad older? Yes. But here's the thing. The story itself is not exactly what people would want to see from Hitchcock. I mean, where half your characters are unlikable for one reason or another. and it's just weird. In fact, on my Vertigo review, I had a review, or I had a comment where someone said that he and his wife tried watching it and they both couldn't because it was boring, which was my reaction when I first seen it. So Hitch, it's not fair to blame Jimmy Stewart for the lack of success Vertigo had, but it's definitely made its name now, that's for sure. But going back to The Man That Knew Too Much, Jimmy Stewart is still really good in this movie. His acting is great, as always. His reuniting with his son is really well handled. I think the one thing also, aside from the kidnapping, that I hated was when they actually go to Ambrose Chapel and they find out that the Draytons are there, and that's when he decides to tell Joe to call the cops, when she suggested calling the cops before even entering the chapel. Once again, the wife is way smarter, but again, that doesn't take away from Jimmy Stewart's really well acting. So I guess that is all I have to say as far as both the original and the remake of The Man That Knew Too Much. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these movies. How high or low do they rank on your Hitchcock list? Which one do you watch the most? And what review would you like me to cover next? Till next time, I will see you guys. Enjoy your day and keep on watching if you want to. Okay, bye. Have a great and wonderful day.